Okay, so let's dive right in. Feminism, right? It promised liberation. Big promise.
Huge.
So why does it feel like, I don't know, like so many women are kind of grappling with this quiet unhappiness?
It's a paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
The freedom we fought for.
Mm,
Maybe it hasn't delivered the straightforward empowerment we expected.
exactly. It feels more like this huge, complex landscape we have to navigate now. Maybe more adrift than liberated.
It's definitely more complex terrain than perhaps the initial narrative suggested.
Okay, let's try a thought experiment. Imagine, just for a second, a world without feminism. What would that actually feel like for you as a woman?
Hmm.
Your life, your choices, maybe simply, predetermined, but would simple equal happy or just quiet?
Right. Is contentment really found in having fewer struggles? Or is that just, a muted existence, a
Okay.
comfortable cage, maybe?
Yeah, comfortable cage. Is that better than freedom?
Well, there's a big difference between just not having visible conflict and actually having inner peace, isn't there? A
Hmm.
set role might feel secure on the surface,
Sure, secure.
but what's the cost? To your potential,
Hmm.
to just figuring out who you are.
I had this moment the other day. Totally ridiculous. A spoon. Someone didn't put a spoon back right, and I just lost it.
Right.
And obviously, it wasn't about the spoon.
Right.
It felt like the final straw, the weight of everything, job, home, try and be everything to everyone.
Hmm.
Strong but soft, successful but nurturing.
Yeah.
It just felt like this tiny thing cracked the whole foundation.
That happens so often. These small, everyday triggers,
Mm-hmm.
they become release valves for these much bigger, harder to pin down pressures.
Mm.
The spoon wasn't the issue. It was a symbol.
Exactly. So we demanded choices. We got them. Career, family, both, neither. This identity, that
So
past.
many choices.
But is it freedom? Or is it just overwhelming, like decision fatigue on a massive scale?
Hmm.
A beautiful cage, maybe, but with way too many doors.
That's the paradox of choice, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes having too many options makes us more anxious, less satisfied with whatever we do choose.
Oh.
And society hasn't really caught up, has it? The expectations haven't fully shifted to support all these new possibilities, so the pressure cooker just intensifies internally.
And forget the Instagram version of life, the filtered perfection.
Oh, yeah.
Real happiness or unhappiness. That's the stuff that happens when the camera's off, isn't it? When you're just sitting there with the weight of all these freedoms feminism supposedly gave us.
That gap between the curated online self and the messy reality, it's huge. And social media can definitely make you feel worse comparing your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel.
Think about, the way we sometimes romanticize past generations. Simpler lives, maybe?
Hmm.
Was that happiness, though? Or was it just blissful ignorance, peace, because the horizons were so limited?
Yeah, like not knowing what you're missing.
And have we traded that, maybe, for this kind of brutal clarity? Knowing how the structures work, knowing the inequalities. It demands something from you constantly. It's unsettling.
It's that old philosophical question, isn't it? Knowledge versus comfort. Socrates saying the unexamined life isn't worth living.
Right. Even if the examination hurts.
Exactly.
My own mother said something interesting once. She said, I didn't have many choices, so I learned to find peace within the ones I had.
Wow.
And me. I feel like I have so many choices, it's just constant internal conflict. So who's better off? Her accepting the frame, or me bumping against the edges of my freedom all the time?
They're just two totally different ways of dealing with the world, aren't they?
Yeah.
Finding peace within limits versus finding something else by pushing against them. Both have their struggles.
Okay, so let's just ask the brutal question then. For you, listening, is your unhappiness, if you feel it, feminism's fault?
Yeah.
Or did feminism just rip back the curtain, show you the bars of a cage you didn't even realize you were gripping onto?
That's the absolute core of it. Did the movement create the problem or just give it a name? Was the pain always there, just silent, unspoken, like Betty Friedan's problem that has no name?
Right, Friedan. Exactly.
Feminism might have named it, diagnosed it, but maybe the cure wasn't simple.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just ongoing.
We hear all this talk, the future is female, sounds great, powerful.
Yeah.
But does that future sometimes feel less like a victory parade and more like this massive weight you're supposed to carry, like without a manual or proper support?
That empowerment rhetoric can feel really empty if the actual structures, childcare, equal pay, shared domestic load, don't change alongside the expectations.
Simone de Beauvoir, right? One is not born, but rather becomes a woman. Feminism tried to rewrite how we become women, but maybe the new way of becoming, the empowered way, is just a different set of exhausting demands.
It's a real risk.
Yeah.
Did we dismantle the old rules just to replace them with new ones? A different kind of pressure to be
Yeah.
the right kind of woman, the right kind of feminist?
Okay, take a breath right now. What's one unspoken rule of modern womanhood you feel like you're failing at?
Hmm.
And whose voice put that rule in your head? Was it really about liberation or something older, just wearing new clothes?
It's so hard to untangle that, isn't it? Where do those inner critics come from? Are they internalized sexism or are they genuinely our own striving for something better? It's messy.
And be honest with yourself. You support equality, maybe you post about it. But do you ever catch yourself judging? Like the stay-at-home mom or the CEO who relies heavily on nannies.
Yeah.
Is that judgment coming from feminism? Or is it just new competitive pressures, a new game with rules we're still figuring out?
That internal judgment within feminism, it shows how hard it is to have diverse choices without creating new hierarchies or biases, even unintentionally.
Okay, stark choice time. Fewer rights, simpler life, your path laid out, know your place. Or all the rights, all the choices, but with this constant nagging feeling of not measuring up, not doing enough, falling behind.
It really highlights that tension, doesn't it? Security versus freedom both have psychological costs.
Look at the empowered women online. Perfect lives, businesses, families.
The highlight reel again?
Yeah. Now scroll the comments. Are we really lifting each other up, or is it sometimes a subtle jockeying for position? Who's winning the empowerment game?
That comparison culture is relentless online. Even in spaces meant for support, it can creep in.
Quickfire. Did feminism promise happiness, or did it promise agency, the power to choose?
Agency, definitely. The power to act, to decide.
Can you have one without the other, though? Did we misunderstand the deal where we sold a dream of bliss, or did we miss the fine print saying liberation might actually hurt sometimes?
Happiness is so subjective, isn't it? Agency was the goal. Maybe the discomfort is the price of admission for challenging things that run so deep.
Okay, confession time. I believe in equality. Fiercely. But some days there's this deep, almost primal part of me that just wants to be taken care of. To just put down the weight of making all the decisions, carrying all the responsibility. Does that make me a bad feminist?
No,
A hypocrite?
it makes you human. That tension is so common. Wanting support, wanting partnership. That doesn't cancel out wanting equality. We need interdependence.
I heard something profound once. Women today are grieving the lives they were never allowed to want, while also being overwhelmed by the lives they fought to achieve.
Wow, that hits hard.
It's like feminism opened all these doors, but maybe didn't give us the blueprints for how to live comfortably in the new house, how to furnish these new rooms.
Exactly. Without new models, new support systems, you can feel lost in all that newfound space, ill-equipped.
And here's maybe an uncomfortable truth. Sometimes the patriarchy isn't some guy in a boardroom.
Sometimes it's closer.
Yeah, sometimes it's that voice inside your own head whispering, you're not enough, not thin enough, successful enough, feminist enough.
That internalized stuff, it's
Yeah.
insidious. It works below the surface, shaping how we see ourselves, what we think we deserve.
Then you see the trad wife thing online. Women advocating a return to traditional roles for contentment.
Right.
Is that genuine? A real desire for simplicity? Or is it, maybe, feminist fatigue in a vintage dress? A comforting story that avoids harder questions.
Probably a mix. Could be a real yearning for less complexity, maybe combined with just stepping back from the constant struggle that pushing for change involves.
Okay, another moment for honesty. Ever judged another woman's choices? Her relationship, job, kids or no kids?
We all have, probably.
But why? Was it concern? Or was it envy? Or maybe fear? Fear that her different choice somehow makes your choice feel less valid, less secure.
Looking at why we judge others,
Yeah.
it often shines a light right back on our own insecurities, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Our own anxieties about the path we're on.
Picture this. Woman builds a global empire. Awards, covers the works, cries herself to sleep, her grandmother. Never worked outside the home, found peace in her garden, humming old songs, who achieved more? The public win, hiding private pain, or the quiet contentment nobody applauded?
It forces you to ask, what is success? What is achievement? Is external validation the real prize? Or is it something quieter, internal?
Let's flip it. What if this feminist freedom, this dismantling of old ways, actually feels threatening to some people? People who felt secure, maybe even happy in the old system.
Change is always disruptive.
Right. So is there resistance just sexism, or is it partly just the friction of massive social change, the pain that comes when the ground shifts under your feet?
It's complex. There's definitely resistance rooted in bias, But there's also real discomfort when established ways of life get challenged.
Mhm.
We need to understand both.
Direct question for you listening.
Yeah.
You say you want empowerment, you demand it. Okay. Do you fully embrace the responsibility that comes with it?
Hmm.
Or is there some tiny, maybe unwelcome part of you that kind of longs for the simplicity, the, dare I say, comfort of someone else making the big calls, even if it limits you?
That tension again, autonomy versus support.
Yeah.
Wanting control but also needing backup. Empowerment without resources is,
Yeah.
well, it's often just isolation.
Think about this. Mid-20th century, unhappy housewives get tranquilizers, dismissed as hysteria.
Mother's little helper.
Exactly. Today, women juggling everything get meds for anxiety, depression, labeled stress management. Have we really solved the core issue? Or just changed the labels?
The medicalizing of women's distress has a long, troubling history. The language changes, but the underlying pressures, they look disturbingly similar sometimes.
So maybe the goal of feminism wasn't universal, shiny happiness. Maybe it was something deeper.
Like what?
Like the permission to be fully human, messily human,
What?
gloriously human. And that includes the whole range, joy, sure, but also rage, grief, discontent.
That's a powerful reframe.
Yeah.
Authenticity over prescribed happiness, embracing the whole spectrum.
And could your own feminist identity, the one you perform, maybe, could that be just another construction, another mask, something you do for approval in certain circles, even if it feels off privately?
Social pressure exists everywhere, even in progressive movements. The pressure to conform to the right kind of feminism can absolutely lead to feeling inauthentic, disconnected.
Feminism might not have failed women. Maybe it just revealed a tough truth. Having it all often really means doing it all,
Bearing it all.
fixing it all.
Yeah. And that's lonely and exhausting.
That myth of effortless having it all, it's put such an isolating burden on individual women without the system actually supporting them.
So let's circle back. Are women less happy after feminism?
Right.
Or are we just finally, maybe blessedly, maybe painfully, more honest?
More honest about the whole picture.
Yeah. About the emotional reality, now that we have the voice, the platforms, maybe even the permission to say, actually, this is hard. This part isn't working.
Being able to voice the struggles, the discontent, without being dismissed. That's huge progress in itself. Honesty is a form of liberation.
If this whole conversation is sparking something in you, making you nod or argue or just think, maybe share it.
Yeah.
Send it to someone else you know who might be wrestling with this stuff too. Let's see how widespread this feeling really is. Because talking about it, sharing these questions, it breaks the isolation. It helps realize you're not alone in feeling this complexity.
Here's a thought to sit with. What if this burden of feminism we feel, what if it's just the weight of being awake?
Consciousness.
Yeah. The price of awareness in a world that maybe, just maybe, found it easier when women were less aware, less vocal. And maybe the desire for rest sometimes leads people to seek that quiet retreat.
Increased awareness is heavy, especially when you see how much still needs changing. Wanting a break from that is understandable, human.
Or, the counter-argument, is the unhappiness really feminism's fault? Or is it the fault of a society that only went halfway?
Tinkered around the edges.
Right. Changed some rules, but left the deep structures of inequality, the things that cause the exhaustion, mostly untouched.
That feels very plausible. Incomplete change, superficial adjustments, they can be incredibly frustrating and are likely a huge part of the problem.
Think about breaking the glass ceiling. We celebrate the crash.
Big moment.
But we don't talk enough about walking on the broken glass afterwards. The sharp edges, the isolation maybe once you're through, the wind whistling through.
We focus on getting through the barrier, not necessarily what happens after. The lack of support, the new challenges, the loneliness
Yeah.
that gets glossed over.
Picture her again. The ideal modern feminist. Strong, indie, successful, speaks her mind.
Got it.
Now zoom right in. Private moments. The crushing self-doubt, the fatigue that goes bone deep, the anger she can't show. Is that the goal? Is that what happiness looks like now?
It really makes you question the image, doesn't it? Does the internal reality match that shiny, successful exterior? Is this the empowerment we envisioned?
Quick inventory for yourself. List the traditional roles you've rejected.
Okay.
Now list the new expectations, the often unspoken feminist ones you feel pressured by.
Ooh, interesting exercise.
Which list feels heavier right now? Which one takes up more brain space, steals more peace?
Comparing those burdens, the old constraints versus the new pressures, that could be really revealing about where the struggle lies today.
And that deadly praise, "You're so strong, so independent,"
For that one.
meant well, sure, but has hearing it constantly made it harder to just ask for help, to be vulnerable, to say, actually, I can't carry this alone. Is it strength or just a really good wall?
Yeah, that pressure to always be the strong one.
Yeah.
It can be incredibly isolating. It can mask deep needs, prevent real connection.
I imagine a whisper from the past. Maybe a great-grandmother, hands worn from work nobody saw, saying, "We found community in our limits. We shared the load because we had to.
Mm.
We're free now," supposedly. But are we also more alone? Terrifyingly alone sometimes in the struggle.
That trade-off. Individual freedom versus maybe eroding some of those built-in, if imperfect, community supports. It's worth thinking about.
Seriously, what's the ethical cost? If chasing individual liberation accidentally dismantles the network's flawed, yes, but networks that help generations of women survive hardship together.
It raises huge questions about unintended consequences, about what we value more, autonomy or community. Can we have both?
Let's kill a myth. Feminism isn't a magic spell. It doesn't have all the answers, doesn't give you a map to perfect life land.
No, definitely not.
Often it just gives you harder questions, more complex dilemmas,
Yeah.
and this unspoken expectation that you individually have to figure it all out alone while looking like you've got it together.
It's more a lens to critique power than a self-help guide. And yeah, the burden of figuring it out often falls squarely on individuals.
Here's a thought trap for you. You don't need some cartoon villain twirling his mustache for oppression to exist.
Right.
All you need is a world that changed some surface rules but left the underlying game rigged. Subtle unfairness, quiet bias that can be just as damaging.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Systemic stuff persists even without obvious bad guys.
Yeah.
It's in the structures, the assumptions, and it wears you down.
Ask yourself this.
Huh.
Right now, today, who defines female happiness for you? Whose voice is loudest? Instagram gurus, self-help books, your mom, old expectations. Whose script are you reading from when you measure your own contentment?
Figuring out who holds that authority in your own mind,
Yeah.
that's a huge step towards defining happiness on your own terms, reclaiming that power.
Personal share. I used to think my drive, my ambition, it was purely feminist, sticking it to the man, you know?
Yeah.
But looking back, a lot of it was also needing validation, covering up old insecurities with the language of empowerment.
Yeah.
It wasn't that simple.
Unpacking our motivations,
Yeah.
even the ones that look good on paper,
Yeah.
often reveals deeper, more complex things going on underneath. It's important work.
Okay, that Betty Friedan quote again, the problem that has no name. So relevant. Feminism gave it a name, a voice, a diagnosis.
But not necessarily a simple cure.
Exactly. Maybe the cure is way more complex than any slogan. Maybe it's ongoing.
Identifying the problem is step one. Solving it, that's the long game.
Here's a quiet question just for you. Is there a version of a happy woman you secretly mourn? Maybe a simpler version, less demanding. The one you were told feminism freed you from, but whose ghost still flickers sometimes.
Acknowledging those internal conflicts, even the ones that feel unfeminist, that's key to self-understanding. It's okay for it to be complicated.
And this one, I bet almost everyone listening has done this. Ever dimmed your own light, downplayed your smarts, your success, even your pain, just to make someone else feel more comfortable?
Oh, definitely.
Man or woman, what did that self-silencing cost you?
That pressure to shrink ourselves.
Yeah.
It's so pervasive. And the cost is huge to our self-worth, our potential, our well-being.
Okay, think about this contradiction. We know women are diverse. So many different lives, experiences, desires.
Absolutely.
So how could there possibly be one single feminist solution for happiness? Or even one definition of what happiness should look like for all women? It doesn't make sense.
Right. Honoring that diversity means letting go of any single prescriptive ideal. Fulfillment looks different for everyone.
Maybe it's not role confusion we're feeling. Maybe it's role clarification. Maybe you're not unhappy because of feminism. Maybe you're just more aware now, painfully aware, of the potential for happiness, for real peace that was denied to women before. And seeing that gap, knowing what's possible, that hurts. It's an ache.
Ah, so it's the awareness of potential and the frustration that we're not there yet, individually or collectively. That makes sense. Increased awareness can be painful.
So here's an identity challenge. If feminism is less about guaranteed happiness and more about the freedom to define your own life, your own terms,
Yeah.
are you brave enough
Brave enough for.
to actually use that freedom?
Whoa.
Even when it's scary, uncertain, even if it means forging a path nobody else gets.
That's the real work, isn't it? Freedom demands courage. Courage to face the unknown, define your own values, live authentically even without a map or applause.
Let's just admit the messy truth, okay? You can fight for equality, demand change, and still sometimes secretly wish for bits of the old way. Like maybe a moment of old school chivalry or the fantasy of someone else handling all the money stress or just not having to be the one ultimately responsible for everything. It doesn't make you a hypocrite. It makes you human, navigating huge shifts.
Acknowledging those contradictions, those seemingly conflicting desires, that's just honesty. It's part of living through change.
If you could whisper back to your younger self, pre-feminist awakening, what would you say? Warn her about the exhaustion, the doubts, or tell her to dive in anyway. What's the trade-off?
Reflecting on that journey, the costs and the benefits, it puts things in perspective, doesn't it? How far we've come, how far there is to go.
Listen to this. Your burnout. It's not your fault. It's not poor planning.
Could say it louder?
It's the predictable result of a revolution half finished. Women started running, but society didn't rebuild the track or offer enough water stations.
Yes, burnout as a systemic issue, a mismatch between demands and support. That framing is crucial.
So looking ahead, when our daughters or granddaughters ask, did feminism work? Did it make women happier? How do we even measure that?
Is it just about laws and paychecks?
Or is it also about their inner landscape, their sense of peace, their overall well-being? What are the metrics for that?
Defining success for the long haul.
Yeah.
It has to include both, doesn't it? The tangible rights and the intangible sense of wholeness.
Here's a paradox to chew on. Maybe real feminist happiness isn't a destination, not eternal sunshine.
What is it then?
Maybe it's the radical permission slip, the ongoing okayness to feel it all. Unhappiness, anger, frustration, joy, peace, all of it, without judging yourself and still knowing you're whole.
The freedom to be emotionally authentic, to not have to perform positivity. That sounds genuinely liberating.
Raw confession time again. Yes, in bad moments I've blamed feminism for my stress, for the complexity.
We've all been there.
But then I remember generations of women before us, unimaginable limits, silent despair, no words for their pain, no hope of escape. That silence, that's the real horror.
Perspective, remembering the context. It doesn't erase today's struggles, but it frames them differently. Gratitude for the voice, even when using it, is hard.
So maybe there's hope in this shared messiness. We're all navigating this weird, contradictory, post-liberation world. Imperfectly, angrily sometimes, tearfully sometimes.
That's honestly.
But honestly, and maybe that shared honesty, that flawed solidarity, maybe that's powerful.
I think it is. That collective grappling, admitting the complexity,
Hmm.
it builds resilience, connection.
Okay, bringing it home, back to the start. Are women less happy after feminism? Maybe the real question, the one that matters more, is, are we finally truly allowed to define happiness for ourselves?
On our own terms.
Yeah, even if that definition looks like righteous anger sometimes, or deep rest, or something totally new the world hasn't seen or approved of yet.
The freedom to define it, not just chase a pre-approved version, that feels like the core.
Yeah.
That feels like the ultimate goal.
Feminism. It's not a warm hug, it's a tool. A powerful one, like a fucking hammer.
Okay.
You can use it to build something new, painstakingly, brick by brick, or you can use it to smash the pretty mirrors reflecting the old lies. Both are creation. Both take work.
That's a strong image. Captures the force, the potential for both construction and disruption.
Take a breath. If this hit a nerve, made you uncomfortable, sparked something, maybe listen again later.
Let it sink in.
Yeah. Sometimes the truths that matter most are the ones we try to ignore at first. The ones that sting a bit. The second listen might land differently.
Engaging with discomfort is often where the real growth happens, giving it space.
And one last thing. If this whole deep dive made you question things, share it.
Yeah.
Especially with another woman you know who looks like she has it all figured out. Because chances are, in her quiet moments, she's asking these same questions too.
Opening that conversation, it's vital. It breaks down the illusion that everyone else has it easy and fosters real connection.
This has been the deep dive. We don't promise easy answers. Honestly, we're not sure they exist.
The goal isn't answers.
Right. The goal is maybe just encouraging you to live in the questions. Grapple with them, honestly, because maybe that's where the real work happens. Maybe that's where liberation actually begins.